How are you? How you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to talk with you.
Pleasure to talk to you as well.
Hey, listen, I've been going through the record. Wow, it sounds great.
Oh, thanks, man.
What a solid album. You know, as I go through it, I can't help but think that, you know, there's so much of the same going on out there today, and you guys are doing something, I think, a little different than everybody else, but yet it's still familiar.
We certainly do go to our own beat of the beat of our own drum sometimes.
That's a good thing, but isn't it?
I mean, I guess depending on how you want to look at it. I enjoy being able to kind of go across the page sometimes.
I mean, when you're writing music, are you looking for a specific audience to appeal to, or do you try to make it as wide as possible?
We really just kind of write what we write at the time. It's, you know, we don't think too much of it.
Yeah, I get that. But like I said, you know, let's go back to the beginning, because a lot of people haven't really heard of the band yet. I mean, you're getting a lot of traction over the last few years, but how did this all come about?
Well, years ago, Dustin and I met in a guitar center as I was looking for a new guitar, and we tried to put a band together back then, but unfortunately, you know, we both had our own lives going on and other situations, so we kind of went our own separate ways for a little while there. And a couple years later, he gives me a phone call and goes, "Hey, yeah, I'm trying to build another band. You want in?" I was like, "Sure, why not? Let's see where this one goes." And we've just been grinding ever since for the last about 5 years now.
Yeah. I mean, the two of you together are the core of the group, but do you feel like, you know, musically, were you always on the same page with each other, or did you both have such different influences that, you know, you kind of work to make them meld together for the project or the band?
I think both can be true. Sometimes, you know, Justin and I do share a lot of similar tastes in certain music. We both enjoy the 80s and 80s hard rock and 80s metal and stuff. We both enjoy blues music from different areas. He's more of like a, you know, blues rock guy, where I was more of an old Delta blues guy. You know, and I think when we got to more of our modern tastes, I think that's where we mostly differ. But that's more of an approach thing, and there's times that we do, you know, try to blend our approaches to them, to songs and music. We try to make stuff as interesting as possible, given what we like and what we want to do.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the last year and a half has been crazy, you know, with the COVID and everything, and it's really affected, you know, I think music in a big way. I mean, you guys were out there with Fauna, I guess, when all this was taking place, and that kind of came to a crashing halt.
Yeah, it certainly did. We were sitting at a buddy's house in Wisconsin after a foreigner date, and waiting to get ready to go to the next foreigner date in Wisconsin, and we get the phone call that, you know, everything's getting canceled, you know, show's over, and it was a weird thing, and so we were being told that it was when everything was getting crazy and no one was really sure what was going on. So we were hearing that, roads are going to be closed and people are going to be, you know, sanctioned in places. And I was like, nah, we're going home. So we got home and, you know, we started going a little stir crazy, and that's kind of what brought about the album. We had so much time, and we'd been sitting on our tails and going a little crazy. We're like, all right, it's time to record. It's time to finish writing, and let's get rolling.
Yeah. You know, when you get started and to get on a tour with Fawn and start building up that traction, to have it come to a halt like that, it's got to be really difficult for a band, because then you feel like you're starting up again. But I think a lot of bands back then thought a couple of weeks, maybe a month or so, and things will get, you know, we're going to get back to it. Now, a year and a half later, we're still having these issues, you know, with bands playing live. I mean, I'm glad to see that you guys got here to New York. You know, this whole month you were here playing a couple of shows, which was really nice. But do you see it getting better now, where you'd be able to get out there and start playing again, or is there still kind of a lot of restrictions in place preventing the band from moving ahead?
I think as positive things have been looking, there is still a little bit of uncertainty, especially with, you know, some of the newer news coming out that, you know, there might be more of the old bad from last year coming out. So we're always trying to get on tours and stuff, and we tried to book a couple tours with a few artists, and unfortunately those tours were canceled. So there's still a lot of uncertainty. I think there's definitely a lot of improvement, but still plenty of uncertainty to go around.
Yeah. talking about the new record, I mean, A Mile From Home, I mean, it's almost like a who's who of guests playing with you guys on this record. Every song pretty much has somebody on there. Were these all people that you were friendly with over the years and knew or worked with before, or were there any people on there that you've kind of worked with for the first time?
Some of them, are returning. Bruce played on the first EP, the last EP that we did. He did some parts on Midnight Rider, and Joel had actually played previously on the EP as well, and so they reprised their roles and came and did some songs on the new CD. So there's some newer faces that we haven't gotten to personally meet yet, but we had the connections with them, and we are on friendly terms. Chris Caffrey, obviously being from TSO as well as Joel, we had to connect. We were able to get in contact with him. Plus, our management knows TSO well, so it was kind of helpful with getting Chris and Chloe Lowry to be on the record. With Alex Skolnick, our management knew him, and we asked Alex if he would come and play some lead. And so we recorded the lead part, which is fantastic. But we were also fortunate enough that when we did our album release in Long Island, Alex doesn't live too far away. He lives in New York, so we asked Alex if he would come down and play with us. And he came down and we played some songs, and he played Crimson Seed, and it was a pretty awesome time. Alex showed off some versatility that I wasn't even familiar with. Brought out a telly and started chicken picking, and for Southern boys like us, that was we're grinning ear to ear hearing our home music, and it was a good time. It was certainly a good time. There's a lot of guests on here, and for us, a lot of times if we write a song, sometimes we'll have a sound in our head, and so we will ask people to be on it, just because it kind of takes the song someplace new that maybe we weren't necessarily thinking of going, but we have an idea, and the guests will come on, and they do fantastic. They're professional musicians, so you're going to get something great with them, but they'll take it in a place that we weren't necessarily thinking of, and I love that. It makes each song seem a little more unique to the next song.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you a question similar to that. I was going to say, when you bring somebody like Chris Caffrey in, and he has this song that you wanted to play on, did you ever get a song back to you? Because I know a lot of this stuff is done digitally. You're always not in the same studio or, where what they're doing when they record it. Do you get the song back played and say, this is not what I expected? I mean, I really don't like this. I can't use it. Or are you just more often than pleasantly surprised over what you get back?
We've been very fortunate. We've gotten tracks in, and they've always been really good. I think the hardest thing for us is, sometimes it's making it fit where it needs to go, but the tracks themselves are really good, and we've never had one come to us and been like, oh no, this is not good at all, or this isn't what we're looking for. We always just slot it in, and maybe we make a few adjustments around it, but they've always been really good.
Yeah, earlier you mentioned like the '80s, like it was all the music from back then kind of influenced you, and it was a whole different music business in the '80s than it is today. And back then bands had to start locally, earn the respect from that local crowd, going to the local clubs, playing out, and building up an audience. Today you write a song, put it on the internet, and with the click of the mouse, it's global, and the whole world can hear it. I mean, is it still important for a band to work locally and get that hometown crowd built up behind and then spread out, or is it really all on the internet today and social media, YouTube and stuff like that?
I think they're both very, very important, especially with the modern way of doing music, and especially with circumstances like last year. So a lot of the guys that were more digital artists weren't hit quite as hard as bands that live and die by the stage. So I think it's certainly important to have both. Certainly, if you're going to an area you've never been to before, if you have more of a digital presence, it's a little bit easier. Generally, people are more aware of you. But I think it is important to have a home base, and home base isn't not necessarily like just your local area, but have a couple home bases. Like we have a couple. We've got our home here in Kentucky. We've got a home base in St. Louis. We've got a home base in Long Island. So having a couple epicenters of fans and places that you can go there and it's going to be a comfortable show, and you're going to have people that you're friends with. I think those are good. I think those are definitely important to have, especially sometimes on the road you can get into a rut or a funk, and especially as younger artists, I think having that consistency is very important, because you can have a bad show, then go to if your next show is in one of your epicenters, one of your local areas. You play a show, your friends are gonna kind of bring you up, and you're gonna get into a better spirit. And emotional state is very important to being a musician, I think.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, does internet help when when you do have your music on the internet and on social media, and you go to say California, you never played before, and you're playing in front of an audience that you don't have the ability to play to all the time? Does the fact that they can get your music on the internet make it more easily for you to go there and say, well, they might be familiar with our music because they've heard it before, where you have to feel like you go there and then win over the crowd for the first time?
I think both. Certainly, especially for someone like us, like living in Kentucky, or if you live on like the farther east than we do, if you're going to California, if you're going to LA or something like that, if you don't have an online presence, you're going to go out there knowing that no one here knows us, and it can be liberating to an extent, because there's no expectation, but there is a comfort level knowing that there's a possibility that you're going to go out there and people are going to know who you are, and that does kind of help feed your ego a little bit. And as musicians, we probably shouldn't be egotistical, but ego is important. I think it does make you more energetic on stage. I've noticed Dustin very much so. He's very energetic on stage. He's got a bit of that cocky swagger to him when he's on stage, and I think people like that. In seeing someone confident in their space there's something to say about it.
Yeah. Have you ever had that show where you go out there for the play and you hit that first chord and you're like, this isn't going well already? Like, you can see in the audience's face that it's just not going to happen that night. Has that ever happened to you?
No, not necessarily. I think mine's more of especially as a singer, mine's more of I've got the sniffles today. This show's going to be awful, so I psych myself up the whole day going into the show. I'm definitely my own worst critic. Well, either me or my mom. She keeps me grounded for sure. We've been fortunate enough that we've never really done a show. We've had split audiences before, but we've never had one where we start playing and it's like a dead audience.
Yeah. The album's only been out about 2 weeks now, I think, a little over 2 weeks. I'm reading a lot of good stuff on it. I haven't seen one bad review yet. But do the reviews bother you? I mean, if you do get a bad one, do you pay any attention to them, or does it matter to you?
I read them. I take them consciously. Certain times you'll hear some constructive criticism, but what I've noticed most of the time with a lot of negative reviews is there's not a whole lot of substance to it. Generally someone that doesn't care for your music and is going to be objective about it just doesn't want to take the time out to write a bad review. So someone that wrote the bad review is generally not going to be objective, or they're not going to be critical about it. So it tends to just sound like somebody whining, and that doesn't bother me. I grew up in the South, and we preach thick skin here. So I'll read them and I'll enjoy them. I watched a video once of an off night that I had. We did a show, and I was maybe 2 or 3 days removed from losing my voice, so my voice was a little bit rough and it was a little bit scratchy. And we ended up covering an AC/DC song, and a guy had said, "Oh, you don't do that song, your voice isn't gritty enough." And I'm just thinking in my own head, if my voice wasn't gritty enough, then it's never going to be gritty enough. But
that's true. People today just want to be mean and vicious for the sake of being mean and vicious. I mean, not everybody's going to like every band or every song that they come out, but there's a way of saying it where it's polite, and meaningful and constructive. And then there's just the people out there that want to be vicious and attack all the time.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we just get emotional attachments to things, and it's not what it was. I'm a huge Journey fan, and I've heard, over the last couple of years, I've heard so many people say that Arnel Pineda is not good. And I go, he's the closest thing we've had to Steve Perry and Journey in a long time. and he sounds very, very good. I understand that some people are going to be upset that it's not the original singer, and there's many bands that have dealt with that. But I think there's a difference between being objective about it and going, yeah, it's just not for me anymore, versus it's not this person, so I can't like it.
True. That's just the way, it's kind of the world we live in today. Talking about the record, how did you get signed to your label, Resurgence America?
Very, very much luck and timing. We played a show in Louisville at a club called the Bourbon Hall, and it's a really cool club out in Louisville if you ever get to go out there and check it out. But we were the headlining band for that show, and fortunately enough, our manager ended up, before he became our manager and members of the label, were at the show. And they were in Louisville, and they just happened to be walking by, and they came through and came into the show, and they saw us, and I'll admit it probably wasn't our best show, but fortunately enough, they saw potential in us, and they talked to us after the show, and not too long after they signed us, and we made our first CD that year.
Wow. In the past, labels were there for support, money, touring, and everything else. That doesn't really happen today. But is it still important to have a label behind you to help promote that album, to help to promote that music, or you just kind of go on your own like a lot of bands do today?
No, I think it's very important. If for no other reason that without our management, without our label, they've taught us a lot of stuff and introduced us to a lot of people. Certainly you need to have the skills to be able to do it yourself. You need to understand how to be able to manage yourself on the road, because a lot of these labels and a lot of these management companies are a lot smaller than they used to be. It's not the same giant monolith corporations that they were maybe 20 years ago. So you have to figure out how to do it on your own, because they can't be there to hold your hand the whole way. But they're certainly helpful. I mean, they put our management and our label have put us in rooms with people that have gotten us connections, sending us to NAMM, building our own brand. They certainly is very helpful in building your brand and putting you in the room with the right people, and teaching you the way that being on the road you need to operate to be efficient and not kill yourself for doing things stupid.
Is it better to have that behind you? Because a lot of artists, they try to do it all. Be creative on that end and the music part, and then try to handle the business part. And sometimes one could take away from the other. And as an artist, your music really is the most important thing. And that's what you want to get out there to people. But you also have to take care of the financial aspect of it. So is it better that way where other people look after one half of the star and then you guys do the other?
It's certainly easier. I mean, there's something to say about people that can manage themselves and take care of all of it on their own, and there's benefits to it. But I think the benefit of having a good management and a good record label that will assist you through it to allow you to focus more on the music side and the performance side, I think that's certainly very, very helpful.
Yeah. Eric, I'm not going to keep you. I appreciate you talking with me today. What a great job you guys did on A Mile From Home. I mean, it's been out a few weeks right now. Do you have any upcoming plans? I know you have some shows in September and October. Anything else lined up for the rest of the year? Is it still a work in progress?
Right now it's a work in progress. We've been trying to get on some tours, and unfortunately they've been canceled so far. So we're going to keep looking and see if we can't get any more dates, and we're going to keep going the way we can do, and hopefully everything keeps going in a more positive trend. And well, we'll keep looking out, keep our eyes and ears open as we always do.
That's it. I'm glad that New York is one of your home bases, because I was away when you guys played a few weeks ago here, so I can't wait for you to come back home and play again so I can see you guys live.
Absolutely, we enjoy going to New York. It's probably with St. Louis, New York is probably actually. Even above St. Louis, New York is probably the place that we played at the most.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys.
Other than back home.
All right, you take care, my friend. Have a great day.
You as well. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.